There's an old saying that states, light a campfire and everyone's a storyteller. If you've ever sat around a hunting camp at night, you've heard the stories. Anything from survival to sad and hilarious to heroic. Some stories serve as warnings, others only entertain. But through the smoke and embellishments, you truly get to know someone. In producing the best of the West, it's always an honor to follow the service men and women who serve our country and allow us to be part of their hunts and hear their stories. We followed veterans in Africa, Arizona, Tajikistan, Wyoming, Ireland, and on this episode, Hawaii. Several years ago, the Best of the West was honored to film the Purple Heart Outdoors Tour while hunting mule deer in Wyoming. This nonprofit charitable organization is dedicated to serving our nation's active duty service members with first-rate outdoor events all across the United States. A true privilege to meet the special operations warriors who protect our country and gain a deeper appreciation for their courageous service. As skilled marksmen, the hunt was highly successful and provides the soldiers a small reprieve from their active duty roles all over the world. Hunting with Heroes Wyoming was founded by veterans for veterans and serves the great men and women who have been injured while serving our country. Joel Tavera, who sustained serious injuries in 2008 when a 122 rocket projectile hit the truck he was in and put him in a coma for 81 days. Joel sustained 3rd and 4th degree burns across his body, suffered a traumatic brain injury, lost his vision, and had his right leg amputated. While being interviewed for the episode, Joel said it's not about the disability, it's more about the ability. Joel proved that ability over the course of his hunt and harvested his first bull elk thanks to the volunteers and landowners that rallied around him and made his dream hunt a reality. Many more Best of the West episodes have featured soldiers enjoying the lands they fought to protect. Always a privilege to give back to those that have given so much for all of us. Various organizations provide hunting opportunities to soldiers, so get involved and find a way to serve those that serve our country.
Hi, I'm Jake Michelitz. I'm currently a United States Marine infantryman. First I started out stationed out in Washington, D.C. I was in the color guard platoon out there. Fortunate enough to spend 2 years out in D.C. It was a great experience. Now I'm currently stationed out with 3-3 in K Bay, Hawaii. We're about to be deployed over to Oki. So just before we deploy, we got a short leave block, and my parents came out to visit me and kind of surprised me with this axis deer hunt. So I was fortunate enough to be able to leave the island and come out here to the island of Molokai to do this axis deer hunt with Best of the West. And it's just been an awesome experience. Just hunting out here in Hawaii in general is pretty incredible. Sometimes you forget that you're even in Hawaii and some of these different environments. It's so varied, just from hillside to hillside. Each part of the island is totally different. So I've grown up hunting. I've been hunting all my life. I don't remember the first animals I hunted or killed, but I've been doing it since I could walk. Growing up in the Midwest also, I've been kind of limited to the animals that I could hunt. So I really mostly stuck to white-tailed deer, a little bit of waterfowl, and kind of just varmints in the Midwest. So coming out here and hunting in Hawaii, it's a totally different experience. These axis deer are, they're no joke. You know, you'd think hunting on a small island would be somewhat easy, but it's really not. Just to get to them, we have to go way up into these mountains here, and they move quick. The bucks really kind of just show up and disappear fast. So if you don't spot them and then get on them quick enough, they just disappear and you don't see them anymore. It's a really fun hunt, totally different than anything I've ever done out in the Midwest.
When the Best of the West returns, infantryman Jake Michelitz gets things underway in the Aloha State.
I myself enjoy hunting because it allows me to get away from reality for a little while, and you get good exercise and you can bring home meat to your family. Yeah, it's just a great sport to be involved in. I was born and raised here. I've hunted my whole life and I've been guiding for maybe 10, 12 years now. A little bit about axis deer. They were brought here as a gift to the king in the 1800s. Since then, they've done really well. A lot of areas are thick, so we do Sometimes we do like a deer drive or like pushing, we call it. Or other times we do valley hunting where we'll be hunting across gulches. But it's pretty basic. I guess for a mature buck, you're looking for a buck that's aged out, 5, 6, 7 years old. You can tell they got darker bodies, darker coats. Sometimes they get that, as they get older, they get that hump on their back, you know. But you can tell when you look at a mature buck compared to a young buck. I mean, they just look different. They have that look about them that gives them that real older look. Sometimes you can even tell what area the animal came from by the colors of their antler. You know, deers that tend to come from higher up in the forest, they'll have a darker antler type, and deer that hang lower, they rub their antlers on kiawe and koa, they'll have a more red or lighter color antler. Well, some of the biggest challenges of access deer hunting are everybody on the island hunts. It's a way of life here, so that's what people do. We survive off of deer meat. These deer are smart. They're hunted all year round. Another big challenge is there's so much of them that sometimes if you try to put a stalk on them, before you even get to the deer you're after, you'll get busted by some other deer. Those are some of the other challenges. Well, depending on where you hunt, what you could expect when you come here is you could expect to hike, expect to get really hot and sunburn, and expect to work for your deer because it usually doesn't come too easy. So if that's the type of hunting you like to do, then that's what we got.
So these axis deer are a pretty awesome species. Growing up in the Midwest, I've hunted all kinds of whitetail deer, but I've never seen an axis deer before even in my life. And so coming out, just watching all the deer pass the different ridge lines, it was kind of hard for me to tell which ones were big and which ones weren't. But every once in a while, you'll see one that's just got a really massive tall rack or is super dark. Our guide helped us point out the big ones from the small ones, which helped. You can hear them call all throughout the mountain too, and you can, after a while, you can kind of differentiate the big ones from the small ones just based on how they call. So it's very entertaining to watch them and kind of stock up on them and see them from far away. For the first full day of my hunt, we kind of went up into the hill, the first spot that we were at just that first evening, and we found that the farther up we went, the more bucks we saw. So as we kept moving up, we eventually came to this one spot where we could overlook another ridge line, and there was just nothing but deer crossing it in 2 different spots. So we were just kind of getting set up and getting ready, and this one mambo buck just came out, and unfortunately we couldn't really get set up quite quick enough, and so we didn't get a good shot on him. But as we just kept watching and waiting, we were starting to lose hope a little bit, but out of nowhere, this other big buck just ran out from the tree line, and he ran and stopped pretty much right at 70 yards broadside. So I was lucky enough to get that shot, and I took it quick, made a good shot, and he just kind of spun around, went back in the woods a little bit and died. Unfortunately, he kind of rolled down the hill pretty far, so we had to kind of hike down into all the thick brush and find him. This buck came out, and we just happened to be in the perfect spot, and he came out super close, like 70 yards away, and so I was able to make a good shot on him. And then he came down, spun around, went down the hill a little bit, died, and then fell all the way down here. And we got him. Yeah, here he is. Try to keep my ass upright. We were able to get him cut up the way we wanted and then pack him out. And that was a real hike, getting him packed out, because we had to go up this pretty gnarly cliffside that was all vegged up and super thick vegetation. And then once we got there, we had to make the hike all the way back down the mountain. So it was a good hike, great experience, great buck. Couldn't be more thankful and just lucky for that second opportunity.
Here we are at a beautiful place, Molokai Island here in Hawaii. What started off just to be a visit to our youngest son, who's a Marine. He's been stationed over in Honolulu He let us know that he had a week of leave before he was being deployed to Japan. So my wife and I wanted to come over and spend some time with him because it was going to be probably 6 months or longer before we had a chance to see him. It's an interesting island. It's beautiful. It's really different. There's not as many people. Actually, there's a lot more deer here than people. But our first morning, we didn't know what to expect. And it's all kind of on foot, spot and stalk. Fairly strenuous, mainly because it's so warm here. And I'm not used to hunting in temperatures in the 80s with the sun beating down on you. A little bit different tactics hunting these axis deer. They are really spooky deer. When you're spot and stalk hunting, you are truly stalking the whole time. Our guide Earl, I couldn't believe how quietly he could walk through the rocks, through the brush, through the grass. He would just maybe walk 10, 20 yards and stop and glass, and he wasn't looking 2, 3, 4, 500 yards away. He was looking 20, 30, 50 yards in front of him. It's unbelievable how many deer we saw as we're just kind of taking our time and just stalking up to different advantage points to glass over ridges. But there were deer just everywhere, bedded down everywhere. So it took us a while. You just really took your time and just kept your senses wide open looking for these deer. You would have shots anywhere from 40, 50 yards out to 600, 700 yards. The terrain varied that much, and you just never knew where the deer were going to be. With the Husqvarna advantage, it was nice to know that all you had to do is range and dial in your range and center the crosshairs on your animal and shoot. Also, the winds varied a lot. You might be down in a draw and it's just dead calm, and up on top of the draw, the wind's blowing 20, 30 miles an hour. You had to really kind of keep the wind in mind, especially if you were going to take a long shot, but it's pretty easy with the Husqvarna advantage. Right on the turret, it tells you what your wind hold is based on a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind. My hunt started off pretty interesting. We went to a new area. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. There was no wind. It was super hot. And by the time we literally got to the top of this mountain, the deer were anxious to bed down and get out of the heat. We had pretty good deer activity for about an hour, and that was about it. So our hunt was done pretty early that morning. Again, lots of deer. We saw one buck that was maybe a shooter. He really wouldn't come out of the brush enough to give us a good look at him. So that was it. That was kind of our morning. Fortunately, the clouds came in. We had some cloud cover in the afternoon. Earl wanted to actually hunt on the opposite ridge. The wind had picked up a little bit, and it was really in our favor to hunt the other side of this ridge. So we started our casual, slow spot and stalk hunting all the way up, and we're seeing deer everywhere. It seems like we can't walk 20 or 30 yards without jumping some deer or seeing some deer on the move ahead of us. They were coming out early that night, so we just kept working our way up. Finally got to a really good vantage point. We could just see deer all over, and everywhere from about 200 yards in front of us to about 700 yards. The whole hillside was full of deer. We were probably looking at 50, 60 deer. There was one pretty good looking buck, again back in the brush. But the time we all kind of got our eyes on him, he bedded down, and nobody really got a good look at him. So we were thinking, well, we'll just set up and wait for him to get up, and hopefully, he'll give us a good look and we can really see what he is. So we were all just waiting. He was about 300 yards away. Maybe 15, 20 minutes into the wait, this other buck walks up from the bottom and gives us a real good look at about 200 yards, and then bedded down, laid down right away. That was a beautiful looking animal. It was kind of like my choice. What do I do? Do I wait for that buck to get up? We know what it looks like, or do we wait for the other buck that we don't know what he looks like? But after looking at that buck that was closer, he was just beautiful. Very uniform rack, really pretty dark body, nice white face and neck. I would have been really happy with that deer. So I pretty much made up my mind. So we just waited and waited and waited and waited. But after about a half hour, he finally stood up. And of course, he stood up turning away. Didn't give me a really good angle. I wanted him to be a little bit more broadside. He finally turned to the right, had my crosshairs right on him.
The Best of the West is brought to you by Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Huntin' Fool. The Best of the West Shooting Systems. Defiance Custom Actions. The Wild Sheep Foundation. Huskama Optics and LongRangeStore.com. For more information about the products and gear used on today's show, please visit LongRangeStore.com or call 1-866-754-7618.
I'm good. Yep, I'm good. Yep.
He finally turned to the right, and I really didn't let him take more than a couple steps, and had my crosshairs right on him and dropped him in his tracks. Pretty exciting, and he's a beautiful deer. I'm really excited about him. And the whole hunting experience here was different, but better than what I had expected. It was truly hunting. I hunt a lot of whitetails back in Minnesota. They're very, skittish, spooky deer. I tell you what, these access deer are just as spooky, if not more. You really got to be quiet. You got to be careful, but there are a lot of deer, so you get to watch a lot of deer. Anyway, couldn't be happier. Well, here we are, a second full day of the hunt. Earl, this great guide right here, said he has a plan, so we came up on the other side of this ridge and we're just glassing. We saw a pretty decent buck earlier. It was bedded down. We couldn't quite make out the rack and how big it was. And then this buck kind of came up out of the ridge and bedded down about 200 yards away. And anyway, this one got up first. Didn't want him to walk away too far.
And I told Joe, wait, let me stop him, and he shot him and stopped him himself. So he did good on that.
So I dropped him in his tracks, and it's a beautiful buck, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad to be with my son Jake. We got to hunt together, and he shot his yesterday, and I shot mine today. So it's been a great time.
Yeah, heck of a trip.
Good
job.
Great
Good
job.
job.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of
Good
fun.
job. Been a pleasure.
I'd like to say thanks to our guide, Earl. He grew up here. This is his neck of the woods. This is his backyard, literally, where we've been hunting. He knows the landscape. He knows the deer. Yeah, he was just a great guy and very patient and very good hunter. I'd also like to just thank Pat Fisher with Hawaii Safaris, because it was really late notice. We were all set to come out to Honolulu and spend a week with our son. We heard about access deer out here, and we thought, boy, it'd really be fun to put a hunt together for a few days while we're out here. And Pat made it happen. So he made room for us last minute. So thanks, Pat, for doing that. We wouldn't have been able to do this had you not made room for us. When you get to spend time with your family, there's really nothing better, especially being able to see our son, Jake, who's been serving in the Marines now for 3 years, stationed over here in Honolulu. To be able to spend time with him, just get caught up with him on all of his stories and experiences, and then to be able to hunt together, it's pretty awesome. I mean, hunting with your family is about as good as it gets. We made some great memories. We're going to get both of our bucks mounted, and they'll be hanging on the wall for us to have future conversations over and relive those memories, and it's just been awesome. It just doesn't get any better than this.
Well, I'm really thankful just for the opportunity to come out on this hunt. It was a kind of a surprise to me. I didn't know that I was even going to be out here or that I was going to be filmed or anything. So it was very last minute. The only thing I brought were my boots, and it's just a huge honor to be able to come out here and hunt with both my parents. Just since I've enlisted, it's been kind of a while since I've been able to go out on a hunt. So I'm so glad that I finally got to go back out there and get some good hunting in, especially out here in Hawaii. And our guide Earl has been amazing. He's just been nothing but the best, incredibly knowledgeable. He knows exactly how the wind works and how the deer run around here. So couldn't be able to do any of this without Earl. This hunt in general has just been a good kind of send-off. I'm ready to get this deployment out of the way, and then when I get back from that deployment, I'll be transitioning out of the Marine Corps. So it's given me something to look forward to. I'm looking forward to being able to do more hunts. And yeah, I'm just incredibly fortunate to have been able to come out here and do this hunt with my parents in Best of the West.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Best of the West. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest long-range hunting adventures.